Hi, I'm Cameron Bonsey. I am the VP of Marketing with Costa Main Brands, and I have the pleasure of being online with Ron Wilson. And Ron is the host of In the Garden with Ron Wilson. He also works with Natorp's Garden Center and Landscape. It's Natorp's, I mispronounced that actually.
It's Natorps, Natorps, and it's a full. We have everything. We have a nursery, wholesale, we're a grower, retail, so we actually cover it all.
So you cover it all. You also answer questions all day long. You do a blog, you do a call-in radio where people ask questions. I always like to start with, how did you get to that point? What is your love? Where does it come from that you got interested in gardening?
Probably from my parents and my grandparents. As a kid growing up, we always lived out of the cities. We lived in the country, didn't have a big farm, but we always had acres. So we were able to, grow gardens. We had the cattle and that type of thing. So it was kind of fun, small farming. My grandparents were into it bigger, but I think that's what probably got my main interest. Actually, when I graduated from high school and was going to college, I was in pre-vet. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, but my minor was horticulture. And I got into the whole business as a loader at a garden center. And it was actually Natorp's many, many, many years ago. And I decided to change my major. I decided I really loved working with plants so much that I went and changed, and that was that. And so I got into the business and have stayed in the business ever since, and totally enjoyed it, obviously, because I'm still here.
How many years have you been with Natorp's?
A long time. Believe it or not, I started back in 1970.
Wow.
Yes, that's 52 years.
Yeah. So
yeah, long time.
Totally different world, totally different gardening experience. Natorp
it's changed so much over the years. It's just incredible.
And do you see, a difference? I always think about, I'm in a fairly similar age group that you are. I think about the way that I grew up more playing in the woods outside. Not that I knew a lot about plants at all, but I had a different experience because I was outside. How have you seen the questions change, the experience change? You've got 52 years of working at a garden center. What are some of the biggest changes and questions that you've gotten?
I think as we look at the retail today, it has changed so much, even when we're busy, when we're not busy, what folks are buying, et cetera, et cetera. But I think back when I first started, and I always bring this up in the springtime, Memorial Weekend was the main kickoff for planting annuals and finishing up the vegetable garden. Today, it's the first 70-degree day in March. Everybody's looking for petunias and peppers. So, it really has changed that way. We get off to a much earlier start. And I have to look, as we look back, when again, first starting this business, even after I graduated from The Ohio State University, at that time, perennials weren't a big deal. We took one class in perennials and that was it. And I was actually quoted at one time saying, perennials are like a bunch of weeds to me. Well, I really didn't know perennials, and look at the perennial market today is phenomenal. And then you walk in and you look at all the annuals that are available today, phenomenal. And then you look at all the different shrubs. I mean, it's crazy. And, compared to our inventory and the plant selections that we had in the 70s and 80s compared to today, it doesn't even come close. And there's new ones coming every day and trying to keep up. And the selections are just unbelievable. It's so exciting. And I can understand where people walk in a garden center today and just their heads spin if they've never been there before, because where do you even start with so much available for you?
I think that's a great point, because the complexity, personally, I didn't grow up gardening. My parents had a little bit of a garden. I wasn't interested in plants. I got into this business because I produced a television show and then learned a lot about soil, and my plant knowledge is still very limited. And I think all the time, how do garden center employees keep up with all this information? I mean, what do you have a special system? Is it just your love of it, your experience? How do you keep up with all the different trends?
I read a lot. I stay in touch myself. I think that anybody in this industry, if you want to stick with it, you've got to spend time even on your own, trying to keep up with everything. I still get, emailed newsletters, and I still visit a lot of other garden centers. I try to read everything I can. You still get the magazines. It's kind of part of my job here at Natorps is to, to look at what trends are out there, to look at new plants that are coming along, to see what's out there, and of course share it with everyone else. But I think it's really important for you as an individual
Sure.
to keep yourself educated, taking the classes, and and going to the trade shows, and seeing what's out there and keeping updated. I mean, so many folks that get into this and they don't continue to update, and things change all the time with new products and new solutions and new plants and whatever. You got to stick with it. If you don't, it's going to pass you right on by. And I think that's where, you know, being involved with the radio shows for many years. I've done used to do a lot of the TV in the past, all of our local TV tips as well. It forced me to be more educated because obviously I had to stay up with what was going on. And again, I just try to encourage folks as much as in this industry to do everything you can. And it is on your own time because we're busy when we're working, to stay as in touch with everything that you can. Visit other garden centers, visit other places that are great retailers. I learn a lot, probably sometimes more from other retailers versus actual other garden centers. But you've got to stick with it. And if you don't, it'll pass you by.
It's interesting, other retailers, other garden centers. I always think about the Costa Maine brand and these kids sitting behind me with these beautiful Costa Maine bags. The community of independent garden centers, retailers, my experience has been the sharing, the support, going to industry shows and garden centers, actually going, sometimes traveling together to get that information. Garden centers have been a huge part, the biggest part of the Costa Maine brand. And what is it about Natorps, and I ask this question all the time, but really, if you're with a friend having a cup of coffee or a beer, what do you tell them about Natorps that they're going to experience that's special, that's different than they might find someplace else?
A great question. We try to ask ourselves that all the time and try to come up with all the answers of why people come here to see us. I think the one first thing that gives us a lot of clout is the fact that Natorps have been around since 1916, still family owned. And it's, been there a long time. And so it has a really good reputation for being one of the top quality nurseries in the tri-state area. And I put us in the United States as well. One of the top nurseries as far as quality plants. And that's, other people can grow quality plants as well. But then we look at the selection, then we look at the people that are here. And I think, again, you're only as good as the people that work, at your company. And our team here, our staff, the people that we have are simply outstanding. And I think that the customer service that we try to give to all of our customers to come in here, I think is absolutely outstanding. I think that we wow them when they show up, when they see our 3 acres under cover that's shoppable anytime. We're located on a 150-acre nursery here that you can go anywhere and look at the plants. And we've got all that wow there. But again, the bottom line is they're wowed when they're greeted. They're wowed when they're taken care of, when they are shopping. They're wowed when we check them out, and they're wowed when we load their cars and send them on their way. And once they leave here, we still are here for them 24 hours a day through our website, through emails, through our texts, whatever it may be. So we're in touch all the time. So, we try to cover everything. And I think we just offer our customers so much as far as, and I'll go back to the people and the service and the quality of the plants, et cetera, et cetera. Just a lot of things there that we feel that just puts us at the top of the list. And I'm proud to say that.
Yeah, obviously, if you've been there since 1970, you've seen a lot of changes, and also the ability to grow your own plant material, and to have native plants, and have somebody that is getting a plant that's already adjusted to the climate that they're going to be planting in. Are people asked? I get more questions now about what goes in our products, how we compost, and all of those things. There's much more of an interest than there used to be. You must get a lot of questions about, where is this plant from? Is it grown locally? And you must have a huge strength there with having enough 150 acres.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, we have a total of over 300 acres, but where this particular retail operation sits is one of the nurseries. But we do, and there's a lot of concern there anymore about what is looking at the soils that we use. Where do we source out plants? Growing them. I think the biggest thing that comes along today with questions would be, are you an organic grower? Which we are not. We try to stay as natural as possible, but we're not a certified organic grower. And
Yep.
of course, the thing comes up with the pollinators and, do you use neonics and what kind of sprays do you use and the chemicals and things like that? That question comes up all the time from folks. So they do want to know. And, I think they don't ask about our experience here. I think they assume that we are the experts, and we are. But yeah, there's, more and more questions about the soils, about where you get the plants. It's definitely different than it used to be.
Yeah, well, and everything's different. We know that. What do you, obviously, COVID had a huge impact on this industry, really in
Yes.
a positive way. As far as, our sales went way up. 2020, it was estimated to be 16 million new gardeners. Going into 2021, there was it's somewhere around 87% of those gardeners had experienced success gardening and were planning to garden again. And then our experience is it's leveled out, but we're still way ahead of where we were in 2019. Where is it with Natorps? What do you experience? New gardeners, are they still coming in? Are they still gardening?
Most definitely. And I think we have been very fortunate with our retail that since, 2019, which darn near killed all of us because we were so busy once we were able to stay open. And it was kind of, our online was kind of new. And of course, everybody jumped on that. And it was a crazy, crazy year. But since then, you're right. We were questioning whether or not will this stick with us. And it has. Our customer count continues to go up every year. We see new customers in here all the time, new gardeners in here all the time. Especially where you really start to see it, obviously in the edibles, the tomatoes and peppers and the herb selections and the
Yeah.
fruits and berries, just, people just continue to grow more and more of that all the time. And yeah, we're having, folks that don't have success and they'll lose something here and there or whatever. But our goal is to try to make you as successful as we can. And I think that's plays in with the radio shows too. I think, our goal is to make you as successful as we can make you. And I always try to tell folks, I've killed millions of plants myself,
Yeah.
whether it's on purpose or not on purpose. But it's, it's a series of trials and errors, and, you make it sometimes and you don't. So I think our whole thing is making our customers comfortable with the fact that, we're here, we're supporting you. We've got your back. If it doesn't make it, we still got your back. We'll take care of you, and we can supply you with the information. We answer so many questions through emails, through the computer, looking at pictures. But I think that's the important thing. So yeah, we are continuing to see the gardening stay strong, and we're seeing new customers, our new customer count increasing each year. So far, knock on wood, we're extremely excited about what's happening.
I think that the ability to be empathetic and appreciate somebody's mistake, appreciate their effort, their concerns. I know that for me personally, I can become. I answer a lot of online questions. I answer a lot of questions by phone, and I'm going out to visit somebody today with an issue. And so sometimes you can get the same questions, or it seems to us so basic, like, why don't you understand that basic thing? And that's what you have to remember is, look, this is a person just starting. They care about what they're doing. And I always think that you've got to go back to your core, and it's the core basic things. And how do you get somebody excited about gardening? And it's amazing to me when somebody has a plant that takes off, people get so excited by that. And that core, what are the kind of the basic elements that you talk to somebody about when they come in to first start a garden? It's sunlight, their soil, their plants. What do you kind of go through with them on a smaller template?
Well, we go through all of what you just mentioned. I think a lot of times if folks are just getting started, young couples, whatever it may be, I'm a big container gardener, have been forever.
Right.
And I've always said that container gardening is truly a great way for you to get started, to experiment, to see whether or not you want to do this or not.
Yep.
And it really is. And I think I've grown just about anything and everything you can grow in containers to experiment with it. And my enthusiasm about container gardening it's always been there for years and years and years. And I look at that picture behind you with those kids. And one of the most important things I try to push out there is getting kids involved with gardening as well. So, getting kids involved with gardening, you getting involved with gardening, even the folks that used to garden when they were younger, now they may be in assisted living or someplace like that where they've just got a patio or a small area, they can still garden with container gardening. And I still, so I try to push that. I think the other thing I try to tell folks is before you really bite into this thing, and I use that literally, bite into it, don't bite off more than you can chew at the beginning.
Yes.
Only grow some very easy things to grow. I'll give them some suggestions of what's the easier things to pull off. And then every year get more into it and more into it, and take your time trying to figure out which direction you want to go as far as, edible gardening. But again, and it may be raised beds, which I think is the only way to grow, containers, and of course in ground as well. So, we encourage the homework. We encourage you to look through, ask questions, and then get you started off with things that we know are going to be easy. I mean, if you can't grow, if you never grow a tomato and it's been successful, I always say grow a cherry tomato. You grow a cherry tomato, I guarantee it'll work for you. And then we get you going from there. Herbs, I think, are some of the easiest plants to ever grow, especially in containers. And again, you're right. If they're successful with that the first time, then they'll try something and try something and try something. And the next thing you know, they're into it big time. So we don't try to push you into good, way over your head. Take your time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And we'll walk you through this thing until we really get you going.
I think that's a perfect philosophy. And I think that, as you mentioned, the kids behind me, this picture behind me is a group of kids that were part of our Growing Good program. And I think we've done a little bit with Natorps too. So we do have a program where we donate through independent garden centers, where the school has a need for some soil. And I know there's a lot, people don't understand that independent retailers, garden centers get asked for a lot from their community. And so that can be a stress on them. They want to give, they want to be part of the community. Most of them are so generous. So for me, it was like, well, if we do a basic program where we give some soil, the garden center has that ability to give soil. The school comes in, connects with the garden center. Hopefully they keep coming to that same garden center, and it's teaching kids. There's so much passion with kids. Kids get imprinted on that ability to put seeds in the ground, watch that grow, water, and do all that. Those are future gardeners that will be here forever. And I think that philosophy that you have is exactly what we're trying to do too. So it's awesome.
It is. And again, I can't push the kids enough. And of course, if the mom and dad haven't been involved very much with gardening, that does force them to start getting more involved with gardening. Or if maybe grandma and grandpa were gardeners, now they get back involved with those grandkids, getting them involved as well. I still know, I look back at the radio shows, 30 years ago, and I used to always get folks calling in and say, my grandfather used to,
yes,
or my dad used to, but it was always my grandfather. My grandmother used to do this in the garden. Well, that kind of went away because, that next generation wasn't really sharing that with their kids. So we kind of lost that. So my goal now, and it has been for many years, is, it's very important for us to get kids back involved with gardening, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, the neighborhood kids, the school kids, whatever, do something to get kids involved with gardening. I used to always say, give them a pot. This is one of my shticks. Now you can't steal this from me. Give them a pot, and let them grow their own. And of course, everybody would laugh. And I say, well, you know what? I'll change the wording. Give them a container and let them grow their own edibles or whatever it may be. But, giving them something to grow in like that. And if they're successful, I have 4 grandsons and they love doing it. Their mom got them involved with container gardening and they absolutely love it. And so they're into it. And we just can't stress it enough. And again, it gets everybody involved. And I think that's what's really important.
Well, it is. I mean, I think about, I have kids, 36, 32, and 30. And fortunately for me, they're all doing well. They're great. I spent an enormous amount of time with them, doing things with them. It wasn't gardening. It was more sports based, but you know, parents do spend much more time with their kids than my parents spent with me. And my parents, you know, were wonderful parents. We had more time by ourselves going out, and there's some kind of balance there, right? You
Right.
know, a helicopter parent, you don't want to be too distant, and there's a balance somewhere. But I think that that ability to bring parents back into it, and they have a lot of questions driven by, you know, their own sense of, I want to teach my child something that maybe I didn't know or I wasn't connected to. I think gardening is a wonderful way to grow your family as well as the plants to feed your family. So it's amazing stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
you learn together, you grow together. You know, it's a cool thing to do. It may not have been a cool thing to do back when you and I were growing up, you
yeah.
know, but it now today, I think, you know, growing things in containers, growing things in a garden, hanging baskets, whatever, is really now a cool thing to do for kids. And again, getting your mom and dad, your aunt and uncle, grandma, whatever it may be, involved with helping them out. So I think it's an acceptable thing today.
So as we sit here, and Costa Maine started in Maine, right?
Right.
We were a tiny company started in 1996 by a fellow by the name of Carlos Quijano. And we're a known brand in New England. And as we've gone, we purchased a facility in Pennsylvania to make our soils. We've started to creep into the Midwest. Have you, and again, as I talked earlier in this conversation, our independent retailers are the reason that our brand exists. So Natorp's, your show, us being one of the sponsors have impacted that. What, from your side, what has the response been to our soils, the education, the understanding? Are people understanding it? Are they happy with the soils? Can you give me some feedback on that?
Yeah, you know, we've looked at Coast of Maine over the last several years, and you know, we made a decision several years ago that, you know, we would pick a brand that we like, and we're going to stick with it. I've gone to garden centers that had 20 different brands of potting soils, and talk about confusing. So we picked the one that we really like, and we stick with that in the different selections that they had. But we've always looked at Coast of Maine, um, liked the mix, but just always stuck with our philosophy. And then I think when I started talking with Rich and talking about this product, and let me get you some, and you know, actually try it. Of course, looking at the packaging is absolutely outstanding. And so we said, okay, let's for some reason, Tina, who helps do the hard good buying, and myself, we looked and said, okay, let's do this. Let's bring some of it in here. We like the packaging, we like the product. We're no doubt there. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, and I'm upfront with folks about that. Um, but it's such a unique product. I think it might just catch people's attention. So, as you well know, we brought it in last fall for the first time for us. Kind of unusual time to bring in new potting soil
Yep.
and soil types. And we just were totally amazed how many people, and it was side by side,
Yep.
stopped, looked at your bag, turned it over and read the bag, started seeing what the ingredients were, and actually spent time reading the label. Who reads the label, right? Well, they actually were reading the label. And next thing you know, we were selling that. And we kind of looked at each other going, wow, this is pretty interesting. Well, then, of course, we were able to start trying it ourselves. We love it. I've used it. I'm still using it. As a matter of fact, we did some planters around our patio last night. I'm always one of the last ones in the neighborhood to plant because I'm in the business. But using the compost, and that they're handing, that the kids have in their hands right there, and great stuff. And even my wife, who was not a gardener, even said, I kind of like this stuff. I said, yeah, it's pretty, you know, I kind of explained to her about the new product and all. So in answer to your question, folks were curious about it. They did read the label. They were buying it, realizing it was a little more expensive. Didn't seem to matter. And feedback so far has been outstanding. Folks have absolutely loved it, and us included.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that you brought it in, and it is a big decision for garden centers. You get hit up to carry a lot of different products. So, you know, we're honored that a company as high quality as Natorp's Having somebody like you as a promoter is a huge benefit for us. And I just want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing some time with us. We will be putting this on our podcast. And hopefully we can help promote Natorps as you promote Coast to Maine, and hopefully we get some kids gardening.
Absolutely. And I don't know whoever listens to our show. And by the way, thanks for doing that. We actually do two different shows. The one that you were talking about from us 6 to 9 on Saturday mornings is networked across the country,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun because we talk to folks all around the country.
Sure.
The second one is actually based out of Central Ohio, services all of Central Ohio, which is a lot of fun as well because it's mostly all local.
Yeah.
But we just get so many great calls and so many great listeners. It's phenomenal. But when I end the shows, I always try to throw out there, I'm trying to keep people involved with planting a tree or 2 or 3, get kids involved with gardening, be pollinator polite, obviously. Keep adding organic matter back to the soil, obviously with Coast to Maine products or whatever it may be, but add organic matter. Pamper your worms is the way I categorize that. You take care of the worms, the plants are going to do well. So pamper your worms, and by all means, have fun doing it. We talk about native plants and things like that, but have fun doing it. And I think that's one thing I've always tried to look at is I take gardening and the information seriously, but on the same token, I don't get too serious. I like to have fun with it. I like to joke around with it. So have fun with it. You're going to have successes. You're going to have a little bit of down, but there's always next year. We're all very optimistic, right? Because there's always next year, but just have fun with it no matter what you're doing. And I think that's the important thing.
Well, thank you for coming on. That's a great way to end this. I'm going to borrow some of those thoughts going into my next podcast. So
good.
Being here, just let us know if you need anything, and I will send this to you for you to take a look at before we send it out.